Hello and welcome to ThinkFwd. My name is Spencer Burke, your host for ThinkFwd. This morning we're gathering together with Becky Garrison. Now Becky, you are all over the map with writing and speaking, and so today why don't we focus in on kind of the vertical and horizontal markets. Maybe touch a little bit first in publishing. What trends do you see happening?
Well, one of the interesting things that you're seeing is while the hipsters wanted to be branded and labeled and kind of go after the next cool big thing, I'm starting to see a rise of what I would call almost the anti-branding. People not wanting to be identified with a movement, but wanting to be tuned into ideas that interest them. And it seems at the moment, as Shane Claiborne has said, you brand a movement, you kill the movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem that any time you start to name it, it'll disappear. But being able to think about how you're able to communicate now, let's talk a little bit about the vertical and the horizontal.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing, as you know, with the Reformation that Phyllis Tickle's been talking about, the Great Emergence, one of the hallmarks of that was the mark of the printing press, where all of a sudden we had the priesthood of all believers. Everyone could read the Bible in their own vernacular. Now with this shift to digital, we're now seeing where everyone can access the information that used to only be available to quote-unquote experts. I think one of the advantages is that we can become the experts instead of having self-appointed experts. Now with that, you're seeing a lot of pushback because there's certain people that invested themselves as being the gatekeepers of a brand, whether it's new monasticism, organic church, emergent, you name the brand.
Missional, yeah.
I mean, they want to own the brand and keep it control, but because of the horizontal nature of the internet, that is an impossibility.
Yeah. Well, and how about the idea of the democratization that isn't almost everybody an expert? I mean, we don't need a printing press anymore, huh?
Well, the drawback of that is that what you're going to be losing sight of, and you're seeing this in the news industry, is the closing of news bureaus. The rise of citizen journalism can be helpful, but then again, there's also a need for serious scholarship and serious academic approach. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Right. So there's an interesting balance that you're hoping to find.
I think there's going to be a balance that's going to come about. However, I think what's going to be interesting, and you're seeing the pushback, is those people that claim, I have the power, I have the control to define what the new church of the 21st century is, or the new brand you should buy. Instead, we have the ability to make that decision ourselves.
Now, it's interesting because not only do we have the ability to make decisions, but we can explore and experience. So we talked a little bit this morning about beta faith or beta ideas, that sometimes it's the pushback, it's the change and the learning. And you've been out on the road really looking at some more of the underground kind of game.
Well, one of the interesting things that you're seeing is there's this huge quest for people, even if they claim, I don't believe in God, there's a quest for something outside of themselves, and you're seeing this big, huge push. Like when I hear a lot of people say, I don't believe in God, they describe this God, and I'm like, well, I think that God's an asshole myself. I mean, I don't believe in this old vindictive God, but there is something about the reconciling and resurrection power of Jesus that is very attracted. I mean, even someone who says, I don't believe in God, will say, I love Jesus. Because there's something compelling when people get together in His name to try to see how they can go about and changing the world. There's a huge quest for this. I mean, I was at the Slot Festival, for example. Who would have known that 5,000 kids, half of whom would be self-identified as Christians, would show up for 3 days of fun and party in former communist Poland?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because in a sense, the new atheists, or even the new Christians, we have more in common than we had apart, it seems like, don't you think?
Well, one of the questions I've noticed with a lot of people that claim to be the new atheist or the new Christian is a sense of absolutism. It is my way or the highway. You're with me or you're the Antichrist. You're either going to worship evolution or you're going to worship my way of doing church, or forget it.
Right.
And instead, anybody who wants to try to discuss bridging and asking questions, I started writing for this website. It's a secular website called Killing the Buddha. And one of their basic premises is the old story where the man goes through the walking. The moment he thinks he's found the answer, the Buddha, he is told he must kill it. So it's an ongoing quest for answers that will never be answered.
Well, don't you see that? And I guess when I say new, I'm talking about the different, the next. Seems like both atheists and those seeking God are willing to engage at that grounds.
The stuff that was really exciting to me was I was getting involved with Greg Epstein, the humanist chaplain at Harvard, who came up with a book called Good Without God. And the question was, setting aside the God question, when we both look at the universe, can we agree whether we want to debate how it came to being? That is a beautiful planet that if we do not take care of it, we will not have around for subsequent generations. Regardless of where we decide what is our source of good and evil, can we both come to a consensus that human sex trafficking is just an absolutely horrible stain on society? So where can we find issues where we have common ground, where we can come together to work on healing the world? And that's where I find a lot in common with humanism.
Now, we could find the common ground, but then also you hold a strong belief and desire for this idea of reconciliation. Talk to me about this.
Well, it became apparent to me, as part of what Shane was saying, when you name a movement, you kill a movement. That's also the moment when I would say Jesus, like Elvis, has left the building. Part of the job of a religious satirist is when you deconstruct these idols, it's basically anything that keeps people away from the love of God, to see the glimmers of God that shine through. We can see, I was reading a book, Made for Goodness by Bishop Tutu, and just seeing, this is a man whose entire life believed that we were good in creation, and what does it mean for us to continue to be reconciled back to God? What does it mean for us to be a reconciling people? And I see a lot of these blog battles, a lot of these fighting and just infighting and calling people names and just nastiness, and that's not why Jesus came to earth. I mean, the book I was writing, Jesus Died for This, started asking that question, why did this happen? Why did Jesus die for this? And and one of the answers, as I'm exploring, is we are to be a reconciling people, to be bringing healing to a broken world.
Talk to me a little bit about the beauty that you see in that.
That which was made broken is made whole. I mean, one example would be a friend of mine, Stephanie Spellers, over at the Crossing in Boston, has started working with transgendered community. Now, in every generation, we always have what I call our woman at the well, the person nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole. It's when St. Francis kissed the leper, Princess Diana held the hands of a person dying with AIDS. The person at the bottom rung of the totem pole is the one who is just left alone, totally abandoned. You know, whenever a new generation comes in and they finally get into power, the first thing they do is kick the person right below them. But there's something about the Christian faith that we can redeem that which Jesus redeemed and made whole. That's bringing the world together and setting the wrongs of the world right. And I bring up the transgendered people because they're the ones that nobody wants to touch these days.
It seems like, you know, at one point it was a racial issue, then it was a women's issue, then it was a gay rights issue. Do you think we'll ever get to a place where we just stop?
Not in this world, but as a Christian community, we can be striving for where we feel the next thing would be. I mean, for example, I think one area where I have to extend my love that's very difficult is to fundamentalists. Yeah. How do I extend my love to someone who feels that I have no business as a woman even writing a book? Yeah. How do I deal with people, when I protest often against new forms of church, I've had people call me wingnut, nut job, crazy. How do I respond back in love? And in fact, I did a posting for the God's Politics blog on forgiveness and reconciliation, because I realized that when I can get so angry and so worked up, there have been times I've issued a response to somebody that was basically more flipping them off than forgiving them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when someone says to me, you know, and a lot of this is brand preservation, you know, somebody wants to preserve their brand, and my job as a satirist is to knock them off their pedestal. And when you hit someone's sacred cow, it moves very loudly, and sometimes it even gets chronic diarrhea. Yeah. And my response to that is like, at what point have I gone from satirizing the subject to slamming the sinner? And I'm very guilty of that. And I, throughout this book, Jesus Died for This, come to that realization that, you know, I can be angry more than I want to be. I am not always exhibiting the most Christ-like of tendencies. So how do I, not just the church, but how do I myself try to be a reconciling vessel so when I can keep myself in the focus? So we all do need to hold the church accountable. I think the church definitely needs two things that she's sorely lacking at times. One are mystics to give us hope and show us what could be. And the second is satirists to keep her grounded and realizing when she's gone astray.
Well, I'll continue to travel with you as we keep trying to figure this out. But I thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Okay.
You're welcome.
Blessings.
Bye-bye. Thank you.